What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Jacob of Chamber. Thank you for being here, man. It is great to have you here.
Thank you, bro. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here today. A Love to Kill For is an absolutely kick-ass album. Was there sort of like a preconceived vision behind the making of this album? Were you kind of like just picking up where you left off after Cost of Sacrifice or Ripping, Pulling, Tearing in a way? Or was this meant to be kind of like a new beginning for Chamber in a way?
I think it was just kind of an evolution of all the releases we put out. I think we definitely wanted to be a new beginning because I think it's like the best stuff we have released. But I think it's just kind of like evolution of everything we've ever put out, even, from Ripping, Pulling, Tearing to the Cost of Sacrifice to the EP we put out last year. It's like, I think it all led up to this, and it makes sense when you listen to everything.
Yeah. Was there at all like a concept or a vision in mind in a way? Because I feel like with Cost of Sacrifice having sort of like the element of sacrifice, especially in 2020, made like a lot of sense in a way. And then this album has like a Love to Kill For, which is either could represents the positive or negative aspects of love. Was there sort of like a conceptual idea behind it?
I don't think so. Not really. It's just I think all the things that we were going through in the band and some personal stuff, it just made sense to write about that. And there's also like a lot of like we do like reference a lot of like old stuff, and so I mean I guess it's just kind of, but not like really just we wanted to write stuff we are feeling now, and it does always like sometimes go back to like the older songs, the older lyrics, and we can reference those just because like I feel like not only do we change, but like we can also take from those older songs and be like, yeah, like this is how we felt, but maybe we feel different now, but still write about that stuff.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, does your emotional attachment to a song change, or do you have like a different perspective on the meaning of a song as it sort of gets older in a way? Like, do you feel like that maybe the art and yourself kind of grow on different paths once the music is released?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, some songs you end up like not liking as much as others, and some songs you love more than when you did actually write them. Like you begin to like them more. But I think over time they always mean the same things, and when you write them or whatever, it's just that's what you're writing about then. And but I definitely think over time they can mean something different, or like you live and you learn from that stuff. So yeah.
Well, this is kind of like a debate I've been liking to have with artists in a way. Do you believe evolution is something that can almost be like that you almost have like control over that? Do you dictate your own evolution in a way, or does that just have to come like kind of naturally?
I think in some ways you can kind of make everything like what you do in life is like your choice, but sometimes it can end up being natural. But I think at the end of the day, it's always got to be you pushing yourself forward and no one else.
Yeah. As the vocalist, have you always needed to hear the music before you come up with lyrics, or has your lyrical idea maybe helped dictated the music itself?
When it comes to lyrics, it's like musically, it's easier to put lyrics to music. Me and our guitar player Dave and also Henry come up with lyrics sometimes, mostly time in the studio. So it's like, yeah, we hear the music and we're like, all right, let's like kind of like demo out like placement first, and then we come up with like the whole song lyrically. So definitely hearing the music makes it a little bit easier.
And you mentioned like with references to previous stuff, was like One Final Sacrifice almost kind of like a swan song to Cost of Sacrifice in a way?
I don't think it was to begin with, but I definitely think now it can kind of seem that way just because it's definitely a kind of similar lyrical content. And yeah, I mean, we kind of like pick off the old stuff, so I definitely feel like it is, yeah.
Yeah. Because I was wondering if too, because like we followed you to the bitter end versus Cyanide Embrace to like the title track I Love to Kill For, to tracks like At My Hands or Retribution. It almost seems like every song tends to, in a way, have its own emotional grit behind it. Is every song mainly a self-portrait or a reflection of how you or a bandmate was feeling, or is there a lot of external sources of inspiration as well?
Definitely kind of like a self-portrait of how we're personally feeling and how like life is at the time. Like I feel like how we live and how we like are on the road almost like half of the year, and also like in the studio sometimes like a month or two at a time. Like I feel like most of the time we write about that and like life experiences. So yeah, for sure, it's definitely trying to paint a self-portrait, but also sometimes there's like a outside experience or something we think is going on, or not. It's not always just about how we feel, but most of the time it is. Yeah.
Well, because I was wondering if too, with having Kublai Khan and the Boundaries collaborations, if maybe that opened new doors, not just musically, but on a lyrical standpoint as well.
Um, I think I think it kind of made sense to like try to write a part that I guess they would sound cool on, but at the end of the day, like lyrically, like we made those words and they were singing them, and I think it was cool because like when you sing the lyrics over, like you can kind of just be like, hey, like these are the words we have. If you want to change them, and they just kind of stuck with it, and they felt those words that we wrote down, and so it was cool.
Mm. In order to get like that sort of creative energy or that creative inspiration, does it come out of nowhere in a way, or do you almost kind of have to seek out the inspiration and like almost have like a usual place you go to cultivate ideas?
I think over time, you kind of like, especially the more you write and the more songs you put out, it kind of like it's harder to find that inspiration. But definitely, I think like being alone in a room, sometimes like you can just kind of write down topics or how you're feeling, and like kind of go from there, and especially like bounce ideas off of each other in the band, and it just like kind of comes naturally after that.
Mm.
I think for Chamber lyrically, it's like that's like the hardest part most of the time, is just like coming up with lyrics that we like truly feel and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that too, because like isolation is always a great fuel for creativity, but with Chamber and with like a lot of bands within the sort of sound that Chamber has, the modern day hardcore aspect behind it, there's such an essence of camaraderie and unity in a way. So is it better to write when you're more alone in your own element, or is it better to be in the company of your bandmates when writing?
I feel like the best for us is kind of alone. Like we all kind of collab on lyrics and stuff like that, and topics on what we want to write. And we just kind of take those topics and go our separate ways, and just kind of come back and figure out what we're writing, and then we go from there. So I think it's like kind of half and half, because like we kind of like team up and do that, but at the end of the day, we are alone in a room writing down the words and stuff like that. So it's like a little bit of both.
Yeah. Well, when people tell me like all the time that when I ask how the making of an album was, and they say like, oh, we all collectively came together and there was all such a mutual participation behind it, that I don't really believe it all the time, because if you're in a band comprised of 4 to 5 people, you all have your own different experiences, you all have your own different emotions going through. So does everybody really have to be in the same headspace when writing the material together, or is it better if maybe everybody is in sort of like their own little worlds?
I think it really depends. When you're in your own little world, like sometimes like your brain can just kind of like go off and do whatever, and like you're thinking millions of things. And but I think also for us, it helps a lot, like kind of just like working together and figuring out what's what and what's going on. And like, I mean, sometimes like when we're in the studio, we write the best songs in the studio all together, and not just like one person's writing riffs and coming up with all the drums, and then we just go off that. So I think it's really hit or miss, because it's just some of the songs we write are in the studio, and some of the songs like Gabe figures out all the riffs and programs drums, and we just go off that. Or same with like our guitar player Henry. So it's like half and half. It's like it's a good bit of both.
Well, because your music really does capture a moment, I feel, which I think like you have that excellent essence of aggression that really does, again, capture like a moment. But if you're working on a song for a long period of time, is it sort of like a little bit, the longer you work on something, does it make it harder to maintain that initial spark?
Yeah, and I think that's why Randy comes in to play. You know, he's like a good. He understands what we're trying to do, and sometimes like if we're like stuck on something, especially like in the studio, like what goes here, what should we do? Like we'll take a break, and Randy will like just sit down at the computer and like come up with like a few ideas and then pitch it to us, and then we'll go from there. And I think that works really well for us, just because like he has amazing ideas and I think that's why like you should go to someone that like kind of like wants to help you and like try to like if you're running out of ideas like pitch you something that's like that you'll like, you know.
How do you know though when you are finished with a song? Because Mirror is a minute, Hopeless Portrait is just a little over a minute, but then you do have like a Love to Kill For or Cyanide Embrace, which teeter on like the 4 minute mark. So how do you know when to really like put the mic down and say this is done?
I think it really all depends on where the songs are on the record and what the song is doing, you know, like with like Mirror, I think everything that could have been said or could have been played is in that song. And same with Hopeless Portrait, like we have everything we ever wanted. And then with Cyanide Embrace and I Love to Kill For, it's like those songs are like longer, but there's also a lot more going on. And I think where they are placed on the record makes sense just to like give some breathing room and give some time. And it always like, we're not usually like thinking about that stuff, but you know, it's just, that's a hard question because it's just like, all right, that's, you know, like when we're in the studio, we're just like, oh, like, I think it has this, and this, and I think we're good, you know?
Well, because it's funny too, because with Ripping, Pulling, Tearing, like every song is just above 2 minutes as well. So it's not like you guys are like following the sheer like a Napalm Death playbook where every song is like very short. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think for this record, we had some ideas that like we should have some shorter songs, just like in your face songs, and also like go back onto like some, you know, not like super melodic or whatever, but have like some like melody and kind of like yeah, just like some melody in some songs. And like I've seen a lot of people say there's like, oh, there's like no melody on this record. I'm like, there is, but you just gotta like find it, you know.
Yeah, I could.
I think.
Yeah, you were saying. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you go ahead. You're good.
No. I mean, I could maybe, if I listen close enough, transcribe a couple of your songs on like the piano or the clarinet or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's like a good bit of like in your face, just like kind of crazy music, but like in a couple of songs, like we do kind of tone it down, and you know, it's not just all crazy 24/7. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Lorna Shore and Shadow of Intent are maybe like the few bands that kind of push that, but I wonder why nobody ever teetered with the genre of symphonic hardcore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think those bands are doing it really well, and I feel like, I mean, it's hard, you know, like not a lot of people understand that type of just, I don't understand, you know, just like, so it's just, I feel like a lot of people that are playing heavy music don't really like try to learn, you know, so it's just like, oh, like we're going to play breakdowns and riffs or whatever, and they don't know like like, you know, any other thing.
Well, it's funny too, because I've always like this is kind of like a conversation I want to start like having a little bit more of, because like I feel like bands like you guys or Orthodox, Kublai Khan, I Am, Body Snatcher, like there is like a new age hardcore movement in a way that I really haven't seen, and I'm from New York, which is the hardcore capital of the world, but you guys don't really sound like Agnostic Front or Cro-Mags or Sick of It All or Minor Threat, and I mean that as a compliment. I think you all have like your own scene. But what do you think hardcore is more of an adjective than it is a noun in a way? Like, is hardcore more about the imagery more so than the style at this point?
I definitely feel like I've always said like hardcore is like how you carry yourself as a person and how you like kind of grew up, you know, like I mean, I love hardcore and punk, but you know, some people like the way you like grow up and go about yourself isn't always like, you know, hardcore in a way. Like I think there's some bands out there that, like for example, like Title Fight, they're not technically like a hardcore band. It's people call them a hardcore band, and they're not playing like breakdowns and whatnot. But I think it's just like the background they come from. Like they were going to hardcore shows, going to punk shows, and then they, it's like, oh, they're like hardcore kids and like a punk, pop punk band, whatever you want to call them. So I think it's really just like how you carry yourself, how you grew up, and what you like revolve yourself around.
Well, do you feel, because like I know that Orthodox is from Nashville, like you guys are, but with bands like I Am, or even though they're more death metal, but like Creeping Death and Frozen Soul coming from like Texas and having their own scene. But then you see it happening in New Jersey and you see it happening in California too. It almost seems like hardcore is not really regionally exclusive anymore, right?
No, I think just right now, I think hardcore metal, metalcore, whatever, it's like the biggest it's ever been, and I think it's being more accepted than it's ever been, and that's really cool. Just because I think that's what it needed. It's like all those bands, are totally different, but like you can see Creeping Death and I Am or us and Frozen Soul on the show, and like no one would care.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like you're seeing like such variety of different bands now. Like when you see like Ghost Main bringing out Vane on tour and stuff,
Yeah.
So like I think it's really cool on how all the genres. I've always said though, the most violent shows are the shows where they're playing SoundCloud rap in between the band sets.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And
I recently saw Ghost Main at a fest. It was kind of crazy.
yeah, I know. I will say that one of the most violent shows I saw was a Ghostman show. And again, I don't know what it is about the SoundCloud rap or like just like the real ambient like rap stuff that they're playing in between sets cast the most violent. Like they're playing Ian Dior in between like songs at a hardcore show, and like the crowd is like going ape shit. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, and just a couple more questions pertaining to the live presence. First off, I am stoked to see you guys at St. Vitus August 8th. It's marked on my calendar, and I can't wait for that to happen.
Awesome.
Yeah. But when it comes to your live presence, is there like a similar energy that's channeled into playing live as songwriting, or do you consider them completely separate arts altogether?
I think it's similar, but also separate. I feel like when it comes to like playing live and seeing the band live, there's so much energy and so much like it's just more raw and more just like feeding off the crowd and stuff like that. And I think that's like kind of what Chamber prides in, because I feel like we're good on record, no doubt, but like I think live we're just a little bit better, So I think it's like a little bit different, but we do bring the same energy, like, and sometimes we like kind of change, not totally change things, but like maybe slow it down a little bit, just try to see how things are going, like how the crowd's going. So I think it's a bit different energy,
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing. In the end, you are taking the material that you made on a record and you're just replicating it live in a live setting. So is there anything remotely creative about playing live?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I guess like, just like the stage presence, and just like, sometimes like, I guess songs can like be a little bit different live, and like even like vocally you could like over time like you do different things kind of vocally, just because like in the studio you kind of like are just on that time crunch, just like putting in lines and putting in the vocal pattern, and then live you're like, oh, it sounds like better low or high, so it's definitely like a little bit more creative and a little bit different like every time, I feel like. But at the end of the day, we are like replicating the songs and trying to play them to the best we can on the record, and I think, we do it pretty well.
But when it comes to the stage presence that you have, like whether it is remaining alert and oriented on stage or just, having this crowd interaction and stage presence, is that really something that you could practice, or is that something you factor into rehearsal in a way, or do you just kind of have to like roll with it and it gets just naturally better on its own?
Yeah, definitely just roll with it. I mean, when we practice, like we're not like doing the things we would at a like live show. We just like play the song and we're like, all right, sounds pretty good. But like, and just naturally over time, over touring, it just becomes like a thing, and like how we just play and how we like act on stage,
Yeah, and could the experience of a chamber show also change depending on the venue that you're playing at too? Because like again, when you're playing at St. Vitus, just heads up, there's going to be just as many people on the stage as off of it. But like when you play like a smaller, more intimate place versus like playing at like a bigger festival, like when you played the I Matter festival, for example, or when you play like I guess for lack of better words, like a Live Nation venue where there's a barricade and stuff, does that create maybe a different chamber experience?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like chamber thrives in like the smaller venues where people are just going crazy. But I also like I understand that like people wanting to have the barricade and have the safety of like and like people just being up front and not having to worry like any people jumping on them or whatever. But I think there's definitely a different experience, especially just like the energy is a little bit different. It's more chaotic, it's more crazy at like the smaller shows, but it's also cool when you can play those big venues and also control the crowd. Like, like when people when you want to circle pit, you just tell them and they start doing it. It's like, all right, that's cool. And they're like, throw up the metal horn or something. It's like definitely a little bit different. And I think being a band, it's good that you can control kind of both those crowds just because, like, it's not always going to be like the VFW hall or, there's sometimes going to be a barricade. So I think it's good to play both of those roles, but we always prefer to just kind of stick to the smaller venues, no barricades, just small stage and just people just going crazy.
Yeah. Just remember, with great power of a front man comes great responsibility. You could, I almost like, I feel like when if somebody gets that power of a front man for the first time, is it almost feel like I can make these people do anything? Does it almost sometimes cross your mind like that?
Not really, but sometimes, yeah, it's like definitely cool when it happens, but then like if you say something and they don't do it, you're like, oh damn, this sucks. But hey, sometimes it's very cool.
Yeah, of course. Well, that won't happen when you come to Brooklyn. We're gonna bring it for you guys. Yeah.
I don't think we played Brooklyn in a long time. Or I think we were maybe 18 Visions we played Brooklyn.
Yeah, and I missed it because with a See You Space Cowboy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed it because I'm a diehard See You Space Cowboy fan too, and I was so pissed. Awesome. I was in Europe when that happened, and then you guys were supposed to come to Brooklyn with the Acacia strain, but a certain thing happened in 2020 that prohibited that. So.
Yeah, our van broke down on the way. I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, COVID happened too. Yeah. So we were supposed to play St. Vitus with the Acacia strain in like 2019. And our van broke down, and then again in 2020, and the world shut down in 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least the world shut down this. At least the world broke down this time, and not your van. So I think from.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I mean, but I think that worked out for the better that day because there was 3 other massive concerts happening that night. So this time you guys are gonna own Brooklyn.
Awesome. Yeah. Hope so.
Yeah. Just before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and most of all, thank you for this epic record that I can't wait for more people to hear. Is there just anything else with Chamber that you'd like to promote with the release of A Love to Kill For in terms of other tours, videos, anything you're allowed to promote at this time, I should say?
I guess not really. I mean, I hope people listen to the record all the way through, and we did put out a video for the song Retribution, and I don't. We haven't like posted about it too much, but yeah, there's a music video. We're on tour right now with Orthodox, Sail, Momentum. I don't know if this will be out then. And we got some stuff coming up, but not announced yet. But yeah, just be on the lookout for us, and we're gonna keep trying to be out there and just pushing this record into everyone's face.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Jacob of Chamber, A Love to Kill For. It is out now. Pick it up now while supplies last forever. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.